Welcome to the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Our conversation continues now into electoral processes, which they're not just at elections, but in my opinion, are decisions that need to be made every single day of your existence as a participatory member of a society that has leadership and governance. Two folks to help us out with that conversation today. Abubakar Said is expert in democracy and governance, civic education, and human rights advocacy. Joyce Atieno is an anthropologist and a diversity champion. You're in the hot seats of the Situation Room this morning. Karibu sana.
Asante.
Good morning. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
When you go places, people welcome you with a cup of tea, ugali in the morning, depending on where you are, it can be. We here welcome you with a proverb. CT has these morsels that he picks from the African continent. What your job is when you hear it is to tell us how it resonates with you and how you'd interpret it. Does that work? Okay.
A hen cannot lay eggs and hatch them all on the same day.
Where have you gone today?
We are in the Republic. No, let me rephrase that. We are in the island Republic of Mauritius.
What did the hen do again?
Well, this particular hen did what most hens do.
Yeah.
But then after it had done that, people observed that certain things didn't happen immediately. And so the proverb, a hen cannot lay eggs and hatch them all on the same day.
Voila. Joyce?
I will take this back to what we are about to discuss today. Electoral process. It is not an event, but one process that leads from one stage to another until we get to the desired level of what we want to achieve. So that is what this proverb is talking about. You cannot do everything all at once.
There you go. Abubakar?
So for me, I look at the finance bill, for example. It's the finance bill, what it wants to achieve is, they want to ensure that Kenya will get lots of money, a big budget. But the question is, all the things which they put in that finance bill, are they realistic? Can we take our time step by step, all right? No rush, okay? Because, when the hen hatches the eggs, we're talking about the chicks.
Right.
That's the end result. So the question is, let's take our time. Let's be realistic. It cannot happen overnight.
Fantastic. Who knew the Mauritians were in 2024 in Kenya? But okay. Okay, so we're getting into that conversation this hour, the electoral process. But we're looking at youth and women engagement in electoral processes and the findings of post-election research. Okay, so let's start from the end of that statement. Joyce, what are the findings of post-election research that pertains to the involvement of youth and women engaged in electoral processes? What has research told us is the status quo? Now,
we are basing our findings on the research we did in 2023. Now, this was a research that was done by 3 organizations. One is CRI, Center for Research and Innovations in East Africa, and then we have Jaslika Foundation, and lastly, Education for Africa. Now, based on our different strengths, each and every person went to a certain county and collected data on why we don't have youth voting. What is the reason, and what can we recommend for it to be done in 2027 so that we see improvement? Now, we have, for instance, I went to Siaya County, and one of the biggest issues that I came across was the issue of gold mining. We have a lot of youth who are into gold mining, and no one is looking at them even when it comes to civic awareness and voter education. So what they wanted is that someone should go out there to the mines, to the mining areas, and specifically talk to these youth who think that money is more important. We should be making money from gold mining rather than maybe appearing in voting stations and, going to vote, and even wanting to be represented in the whole electoral process. So the most important thing is priorities when it comes to youth.
So the research found out that people are more interested in money-making ventures than being involved in the electoral process.
True.
Okay. Why, Abubakar?
Why? Because at the end of the day, when you look at a young person, at the end of the day, they believe that when they vote, in fact, when you're going to look at the waves, which we'll talk about later, when they vote really doesn't count, all right? So why should I go to vote and it didn't change my life, all right? So I'd rather work and make a living. Okay, but
that vote does change their lives.
Supposedly.
Oh no. It does change their lives.
They know.
No, they do know.
So
they actually do know.
So, okay, let me give you the twist.
Yes.
You see, first, let's look at the voting landscape, okay?
Yes.
Number one, where do you find the young people, the average young people? The urban young people will be on the social media, all right? Our voting is kind of old school, kiasi. You have to go to the ballot. So the youth is asking, really, why don't you make it easier for me to vote, all right? Using where I sit in the digital spaces, all right? They do their dating online. So why not they do their whatever, all their work.
Their life.
Their life is online, right? Why don't we go there? Number one. Number two, many of the young people, voting for them is a problem. Number one, they don't even getting IDs is a big problem for many youths. Apparently, which is a good thing in quotes, that the country is going to give livestock IDs, granted, but is everybody having identity cards? Because you need the identity card to vote, all right? And then, you see, why don't you just make it easier? The ID card also work as a voter's card. For the young people, going to register a voter, and then, again, I vote, it's, for them, it doesn't make sense, all right? They want things easy.
It actually doesn't make sense because you can actually travel to neighboring countries with an ID.
Exactly, okay.
We don't actually need a passport to go to these African countries. So the point is well made.
Yeah, so basically what the youth are saying is that we are not in touch. They're not the people who are working around elections are not in touch with their needs, all right? And then, of course, they've seen a lot of promises from long time that when I get into power, I'll make sure there's work, there are opportunities, but they vote me in. I do not give them what I promised. So they get disenfranchised. And then they see the same faces on the ballot boxes, all right? So they're wondering, they can't see themselves there, all right? They see the same Abubakar every day. So really? Why don't Abubakar retire so that I can also vote? So the point is they're not seeing their people. Also, that's a big deal for them.
80% of the population of this country are people below the age of 35. Okay? This I hope they know. Okay? Now, the very things you mentioned, some of them can only be changed legislatively. The laws have to change. Okay? Now, you said very clearly that these things are processes. Do they also understand? I personally believe they do. That the process of change doesn't begin or end with you casting a vote. There's the aspect of you holding your leaders to account and ensuring that they're responsible. There's that bit, and that is something they can do.
But do you know, at least I've been in the area of civic education, that the bulk of civic education has been done in Kenya since like the past 2 decades. The resources are coming from donors outside the country. So here we're talking about taxpayers in, let's say, US, UK, Finland, Norway. They're doing a very good job in collecting their own taxes until they have extra to bring to Kenya to teach our people about their rights and responsibility as citizens. So the question is, where is the government who are supposed, it's their role to ensure that the citizens understand their civic responsibility. So the point is, it's tricky for someone who's over 18 to be, you start teaching the person about their rights and responsibilities. So once I'm through with my education, should I go back to class and listen why I should be a good citizen? We've been trying, but that's not the solution.
Abubakar, education ends the day you die.
Exactly.
So, when you look at what's been happening now, okay, some call it a light bulb moment. I don't think so. It's just a culmination of understanding situations, because sometimes we speak out of turn in this sense. The fact that information has been given doesn't mean it'll be internalized. Sometimes people reject the information. Sometimes they're actually just not ready. Sometimes they don't understand it. But what I've seen over time is sometimes you just need to give it time. It's not within your control. And then it will settle and it will be gotten. They've heard it all along, but a time comes when it crystallizes and they say, okay. The decisions that we make or don't make amount to the same thing. If you vote or you don't vote, it amounts to the same thing.
Exactly.
But it is worse if you don't, because then you've left the decisions that are being made on your life to other people without you having a say.
Maybe.
And
So,
you say that 80% of Kenyan's population is made up of youth, right? And it's only 39% of youth that voted in the previous election.
Yes.
Okay.
So this is a big issue. We're trying to make it seem like the youth should know these things, but in what way are we giving this information to them?
What way are we giving the information to them, I think, Joyce? Because that's what I wanted to ask. How are we actually giving the information about how youth, and because this is interesting because we've put youth and women into this demographic space, right? So how is the information being delivered? Because I think it is vital. Because I think to myself, in first grade and how I was taught certain subjects, I remember those things to date. And I remember the way in which it was delivered to me and how many years later, I was 6. How many years later?
And you even remember the teachers.
And I remember the teacher. I remember the things she said on a certain day when I was in 3rd grade or when I was in 5th grade. I remember the delivery of the message for me, I think, is extremely important. If it's being delivered at all. So how is information today that would result in the information now that you see in this report being delivered to people who are saying don't vote? Because something triggers or doesn't trigger me to make a decision about something based almost completely on how it is delivered to me and what it is that you're telling me.
We have organizations, civil society organizations like Uraia, who are doing civic awareness. Now the issue is, even though they are giving this information, is it reaching the desired person? Is it going to the youth at the grassroots level? Tunasemanga pale kwa ground. Yeah. Now this is an issue because most youth that we met on the field said that even though these civil society organizations come and meet them, there is only a specific number of people who are selected to go and just sit somewhere and get maybe seating allowance. At the end of the day, you're being reimbursed fare back home.
What for?
But
what's the reimbursement for? What are you being reimbursed for?
Because you've come and you've spent your time in the baraza. So now
you're being reimbursed your time.
Yeah.
yes, and they always ask for it.
I understand that. But there's this question which arises. Abubakar, it is you who set what I'm about to ask in motion about what the youth say. In your research, did you ask them what it is or how it is they would like to be communicated to?
We did.
And what did they tell you?
They said that they want one of them to do this work, not some old person going around selecting people to talk to them. They want that inclusivity.
And they want to tell you the sort of person they want. Is that not so?
Yes, and
So
language
it's clear.
as well.
It's clear what they want. And it is therefore assumed that this person or this category of person that they've chosen, they will listen to. Is that not so?
They also want incentives. What are they getting in return?
Yes, no.
Actually, that is ideal. They should ask for what they're going to get.
Abubakar,
They
you
should.
mentioned something about the digital spaces where young people actually, you know what, if I'm going to go vote, I don't want to go stand in a line for 6 hours on election day to go and, cast my ballot, whereby progressive countries, okay, and I use that really carefully, are saying that certain progressive nations will allow you even go cast your vote a month to the election, and you can be sure that is hidden and nobody knows anything about it until they collate. Or in the comfort of your home, you can actually vote because the system is secure. Now we're talking about freedom in the digital space. I want to be able to do that. looking at the finance bill today, because this is front and center in some of the things that we're talking about processes, right? That people want this thing to be, don't give me this 53-page thing about drama. Break it down. So what did we see go viral? A video of a lady on TikTok who took 5 points and she just put it in a language that people resonate with, and it kind of made sense to everybody. So are we saying that in as much as we're getting the information on this side, how we're inputting the information for people to be collectively engaged in a political space is very important? What needs to be done for that to happen?
Yeah, it is. And actually, you've actually mentioned, remember the research is, that research we want to inform the 2027 elections. So that's the whole idea about the research. So what you're saying is for the young people, and actually we're talking about a youth bulge, which is inevitable. As City has said, 80% of the young people, of the population will be young people. So what you're saying is it possible to use these spaces, the digital spaces? We stop using traditional method of providing civic education, the barazas, the social halls. Now the shift is towards using social media, savvy ways of making sure the young people enjoys, learns, and see the need, right? But having said that, also we just need to appreciate the fact that I don't know what's happening to our country in terms of the cost of elections. I just need to push this a bit so that we also understand the context.
Some of the most expensive in the world.
Exactly. I'm sure you're aware. And you see, for the young people, the question is this: elections is expensive, both in terms of them vying. All right, because sometimes they need to vie for those elected positions, both young people, women, and people living with disabilities. But as you're aware, we're talking about if Kenya's elections are expensive. Just to put in context, and I'm sure maybe you're aware about this information. The average around the world is you should be charging around $5 per voter. You can guess Kenya is $25 per person. So we are the highest in the continent, and then in the world we are second highest. It's only Papua New Guinea which has beaten us at 63. But there are a lot of context we need to look at, but let's compare with East Africa. So Rwanda, they are working at 1.07 in terms of their budget. Uganda, $4. Tanzania, 5.16. All right? Nigeria, who are our best, we can compare ourselves with Nigeria in many ways. They're doing at $8.6, and that's 70 million voters. So basically, now with all that, the young people, first we're saying this, elections in Kenya are very expensive, but the young people do not trust
the process or the system.
Exactly, do not trust the process and the system. They believe that IEBC is not independent, and they also believe that the elections are already decided. So they just go there to rubber stamp. The decisions are made in the boardrooms. That's what they're saying. The decision made in the boardroom. City wants to come in. And the point is this. When we were young, maybe we had civics in school. They were saying, at the moment, we are trying, but we're not doing very well in terms of teaching people about civic responsibility. It's a process, but we need to do more. Okay. So,
when you conducted this research, was there communication about what you would do with the findings with regards to informing those who had participated about this particular finding of the research that was conducted among them?
On Monday, we will be launching this report, and our intention is to share with each and every participant. The main agenda, though, was to give the recommendations to bodies like IEBC so that they take those recommendations into action in order to improve the 2027 elections. Now, Uraia is doing one of the dissemination. As you can see, we are already giving the public our findings on this SERA. It was called SERA, Consortium for Election Research Advocacy. Yes.
You mentioned something, Abubakar, about the independence of IEBC. IEBC actually is independent. Let me explain what I mean. Constitutionally, there are people who somehow seem to understand independence in the most reverse manner possible, are the people who are appointed, elected, whatever process it is that we use to get them there. Because the powers that they actually have, clearly they don't use it for the purpose for which it is intended. And whether it is the commissioners or whether it is the CEO, our history with IBC tells us that, yes, elections are important to us, and the process is one of those that politicians within this country insist they must participate. They insist they must have a say. And that insistence amounts to there being people who political parties have actually pointed to and said they will represent our interests. Remember, the interest, not they will say it's the interest of the people, but clearly, after every 5-year electoral cycle, when we see what happens, it is clear that the people are not at the heart and center of what it is that was intended.
Sure.
Now, the demographic in this country that can change that is actually the people or that group of individuals whom we're talking about now. Because one, their numbers. One, as you explain the thinking, their likes and dislikes, it's actually a shift from what we call the norm. So they're change agents just by simply belonging to that particular bracket. Now, how that can be made a reality, we are beginning to see with these demonstrations. Yes, their whole approach to it, how they're going about it, how they're scaring the living daylights out of the political class. It's a wonderful thing to see. Yes.
So, yeah, maybe Siti, just to say, I agree with you, and maybe because of time, but maybe two things. Number one, first, I agree with you that IBC is independent, okay? However, there's a however, all right?
A big one.
A big one, all right? They're independent, they do their best, okay? But remember, even in terms of the budget, they really have to really struggle to get the resources they need to do their work, all right? Yes. The whole idea was they're supposed to get resources immediately without any delay. But
yes.
you find, in fact, part of the finding of the research is that why do we have this sort of voter apathy? It's because you find IBC gets resources late in the day, they start their work late in the day. Their voter education is crippled. They're rolling out in terms of even voter registration is late in the day. All right, number one. Number two, again, just in terms of independence and trust, Kenya have a trust deficit. In fact, why it's expensive, it's because our ballot papers have got features like currency. Whereas in other countries, they even use marbles as to count. I'm sure you know the story.
Yeah.
All right? We do not trust each other. I mean, maybe there's a reason. We need to find out. But the research said that we inherited a colonial...
Is it each other or is it the political class we don't trust? We trust you so long as you don't join that class. You join that class...
We change.
We withdraw the trust.
Exactly.
Until you prove that we can trust you.
Exactly. So there's that issue of trust deficit. But the fact is, I agree with you that the youth are the ones who are going to change. And just for information, maybe another time you get some space, there's a research which was done in just a quick one, 2011.
Abubakar, you have time.
The research was done by Institute of Economic Affairs. It's called the Kenya Youth Scenarios. A serious research. This research, actually, if you read, you'll be surprised. What you're seeing now was predicted. That they said we're going to have like 4 scenarios. There's a tsunami, okay? And because we knew that by 2022, 2030, the youth bulge will be big. So the question is, are we managing the youth bulge? If you don't manage the youth bulge, there are scenarios which can happen. We'll have the tsunami scenario whereby the youths, we'll have educated youth, tech-savvy youth, and they'll start asking, are we getting value for our money? And they'll go. So even if this will fizzle out, the point is, it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when. So don't worry.
This isn't going to fizzle out. The reason why, when I talked about earlier on about timing, technology has come in and is playing a very key role. We are in the information age. Okay? Now, you can't roll back that time. And the people who are most conversable with this age are the people we're referring to.
Exactly.
It is their age. It's them who actually get it. And they are actually using the tools that are available to us, which to people who are my age, we understand it with great difficulty. But it's fodder. It's what they live and breathe.
Exactly.
Now, once that engagement begins, it doesn't stop. It just morphs and changes, but it doesn't stop.
True.
Because there was a process that got the young people to the point we are at now. It's been happening over time.
True.
And even as we're speaking now, a lot of communication is taking place even as we speak. It took place the whole day yesterday, took place at night. It's going to continue. So long as that conversation continues, my point is, it will not stop.
It will not stop.
Yes.
So, is the research finding of what we see, is it alarming, Joyce? Is it alarming? And if so, what are some steps that can actually be taken to ensure that some of the things that might be alarming or that may be in a, for lack of a better word, uncomfortable situation for these two groups of people when it comes to elections, and you cited 2027, that then need to be done? Only 2 years, 3 years to get them done, but what are some of those?
It is alarming.
Okay.
Because in the field, we met youth who said they are never going to vote again. And there needs to be some effort to ensure that we change the minds of these youth. Now, first of all, how intentional are we when we try to bring these youth to vote? Are we just doing it to tick a box because we did research and now we're trying to, get more youth to be engaged? How intentional are we? Yeah? And I'm asking this question because there are a lot of civil society organizations who do these things merely for the fact that they're getting funding to do it. And the youth are so angry about it. Yeah, because this is money that goes to a few individuals that benefits them personally instead of reaching the intended purpose. So my main big issue is intentionality. How intentional are we, or how intentional should we be when we go out there to try and address this problem?
Who's we?
Everyone. This is a holistic issue. Now I'm talking of civil society organizations, IEBC, the government, you and I. First of all, what is voter apathy? It encompasses a whole lot of things. It is not just about voting, but did you register to vote? What support did you give the person that you're supposed to be voting for? So there's a whole lot of issues that goes into voter apathy for it to then lead to the numbers.
The question about what it is that the youth would like to see in order for them to vote, did your research address this? What they'd like to see, how they would like, whether it is the process, whether it is the environment, whatever it is. Because they're not wanting to vote is there for a reason. So if we flip the question, what then would they need in order for them to be able to want to vote?
Reversing the trust deficit.
Exactly. And maybe just also to add, even to answer that question, we'll answer by looking at this. Why do they vote? At the moment, why are they voting? At the moment, the youth are voting because of three things. First, there's a wave, which is a combination of three things. They vote because of this hope. They have hope. That's a good thing. They have a hope, but that hope is that the person they're voting in will go there, do good things for them, ensure there's the service delivery, there's, opportunities, etc. That's the hope. But the hope will only maybe make them wake up in the morning. So there's another thing which makes them go to the ballot paper. Unfortunately, it's the issue of money, bribery, all right? Many of the young people, even women and, people who are in the lower social economic levels, usually wait or hope that they'll get some little money, either 50 bob, less or that's what the research showed, that actually money, bribery makes plays a big role in making the young people go to vote. But the third bit, which goes with the wave, is the issue of indoctrination. And here, what the research is saying is that many young people, and that category, SIGs, they're indoctrinated. They're being told by their leaders that actually, if you do not vote our people, all of us are going to be destroyed. That other community will come and take over. or will be thrown out from this constituency, etc. So there's that indoctrination. That's why you find even some people vote the 6-piece vote. You don't care who that is, so long as ni mtu wetu. All right. So actually, that's what the research is saying. So now, knowing that, the question is, what can we do to ensure that now they vote on issue based? And now you can see, since the young people are now becoming, they getting to an age bracket where taxation, for example, makes sense. Okay, because remember, in fact, the research is saying that if you don't vote, it means you also do not participate you do not attend public participation events. That's where budgets are decided. That's where projects are initiated. So if you don't go for the social halls, public participation issues, decisions will be made on your behalf, but you'll suffer. All right. So now that's the importance of really understanding why are you voting. Okay, can you hold that leader to account? All right. And so I think so. It's that's the way we're going to be moving forward.
So obviously we're dealing with a large number of the population. I mean, they're not even plugged into this system. The only thing that is plugging them in, again, according to this research that was done, is if there's going to be some kind of monetary compensation in order for me to do it. So then I don't even really care who I'm voting for. You wanted me to go, you're going to put something in my pocket, I'm going to go and do it. So for me then, the question would be, what must be done to have the realization of what you're saying, Abubakar, that you are part of this system, that it affects you in one way or another, whatever you do. And if you make this vote, or if you're involved in this process from an informed perspective, then it really does change things down the line. Now, what do we need to do to get to that point where we're saying, plug into this system, be aware, be informed, ask questions, consume information and data about the person or the persons, and the reason as to what changes? Because if we realize the benefits of something, then we can understand why we should be involved in the process, isn't it?
True.
That if I can see who I do or do not vote for has a direct benefit on how I will eat, how I will live, how I will be educated, how I will work, how I will travel, how I will trade. How do we get us to that point whereby this huge bulge of the population is just not into
But they're already
this?
in the system. If, according to this research, monetary incentives gets them to vote, they are in a way plugged in, and we think it is adverse that it is the monetary. Across the population divide in this particular country, bribery is the norm for so many things. Even the people if we hear stories of people receiving money in toilets in parliament, the very seats of power. If we hear of people in authorities, like ministers, being involved in scandals. A scandal here simply means money which was intended for something has not gone to where it was intended, and the person is being told, please account for it. That is the politest way you can refer to theft. Now, the power of example, quiet, silent, but these are children, they watch and they observe and they read. And in many cases, they are far, far more informed than we are about certain things. And they see. And so the why not question comes in. We are seeing it being done. So why can't we get our share? And then there's this little thing about opportunity, equal opportunity. And then there's the engagement that we often refer to as employment, and the absence, which is really, this one's not even the elephant in the room, a reality that we live with every day. See, an ecosystem that seems to be tailor-made for apathy.
Actually, that's where we're going.
Yes.
Because even just in terms of what they're saying is, if you have a youthful population, which Kenya is going to have, if 80% would be a youthful population. I mean, that's dangerous. It's a powder keg if it's not well managed. Because what they're saying is the economy can grow at 3.6%. That's okay. But if we don't have opportunities for employment, and these people are tech-savvy, educated, chances of civil strife rises, will be very high, all right? And actually, that's an indication that you have this population, all right? They need to be accommodated, but if you do not do that, there'll be chaos. But just something else, which is also adjacent onto what you see now, these young people, they're doing a very good job of what, they're coming out to fight for their rights. But one of the reasons, at least from what you've seen, is that part of their livelihood has been touched a bit. All right?
It's not a bit.
A lot. Very good. So you see, the question is, so now, if since the part of the livelihood has been touched, now they feel aggrieved. And they have to do something.
So, then that question, and that's where that question goes into, that what needs to happen? There needs to be something that catalyzes that. Because there you go. This thing that was so important, which was getting you to engage before, money. Now you're seeing that something that could affect your livelihood directly then is being affected. So then you're likely to get more engaged in the process because you see that the person that you put in that position could make or break that thing.
Exactly.
So this is what needs to happen to make sure then that folks are not just plugging in because somebody gave you however much and then you go vote 6 pieces, like you say, through the whole thing you voted, you're done. But then interrogating these individuals, looking at where they've come from, who are they, what have they done, where are they involved in some kind, interrogating it and be sure that you've made a decision about who will govern over resources, govern over administration that affects you. What needs to happen so that people are making those decisions beyond what you may get monetarily?
Now, I saw what happened yesterday, and most of the people who were in the streets, were the youth. And I think what needs to be happening right now is a revolution. The youth coming out in numbers to speak up and make sure that they are being heard. The issue here is that we are not listening to them. I'm one of them, actually. We are not being listened to.
When you say revolution, what do you mean? I was going to ask you this.
Yes, exactly what I
said. It
say.
means different things. What does it mean to you when you say revolution?
Speaking up, coming out to air our grievances, because we have been ignored for so long.
Then it has happened.
It happened.
Yes, because if, as Ndu says, this whole finance bill seems to have catalyzed something that has been brewing, and somebody's realized, wait a moment, I can't be removed from this. And yet, you young people are very polite because you're actually seeking conversation. You're actually saying, look, there are these things that are important to us and we'd like these things considered. It's polite. The demonstration was just a demonstration. Until now it was spiced up. Let me ask this question. This one I have to ask. This tear gas thing, because I don't understand it. Is it a policy that whenever there is a demonstration, tear gas must also be facilitated?
Actually, no. No, maybe it's wrong if you ask me, because when you look at the Constitution, Bill of Rights, Chapter 4, you have a right to peaceably assemble and even demonstrate, all right? Yes. But in fact, now that's a very good question because unfortunately, I can tell you the Constitution 2010 has all the frameworks to ensure that first, there's good governance, we have Article 10 on national values, right? Women, youth, elderly people are recognized in the Constitution, of course, in Chapter 4, right? So, and then the issue of public participation, issue of ensuring that there's equitable distribution of resources, all the framework to ensure that we have a proper country there. But we are behind. We're not going in line with the Constitution. So, for example, even I remember we were working, we had a project to try and provide civic education to the police, right? Telling them, nowadays, you need to engage with the protesters differently, right? But of course, we didn't go very far. I hope that's something to be picked. But the point is, we're still using old methods, old constitutional thinking and order to manage a different situation. And that's where you can see this problem, and it's not going to stop. most likely it's going to get even more maybe hotter. All right. So we need to move in sync with what's happening. But I also want to say this for the young people. I mean, we've been trying, even young people, women, and people living with disability. The framework is there to ensure that they have spaces to to vie for political seats, to ask for their rights. But it's only that maybe they're not using those spaces well. That's the point. Okay. All right. So you'll find that when you go for public participation events, most likely you'll find many women, because they're keen in terms of ensuring their health services, maternity services, etc. Young people, maybe not as much. Are you understanding?
Yeah.
So also they need to do their bit, that attend these kind of setups, all right, so that you get more information and you can engage. Of course, we have a constitutional order. Things are done, legislations are made, right? Of course, we have an opportunity to review the legislations if they do not make sense.
Yeah.
But why don't we also now try to be at the table when they're being discussed?
Indeed.
That's something else.
Indeed. Look, these are conversations that I think need to be happening regularly. And I think that even as you come closer to an election period, then things need to then become more engaging. But it's one that cannot stop. And we want to thank you at least for kicking that off and keeping that through this morning. Abubakar Said is an expert in democracy and governance, civic education and human rights advocacy. And we're also joined by Joyce Atieno, an anthropologist and diversity champion. Thank you for being here this morning.
This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.